Minnesota Wild fall 5-4 in a shootout here tonight. Boy, I got to tell you, that is not a game that should ever have gone to overtime. And it had nothing to do with the offense. I don't know how much it really had to do with the defense. It comes down to one thing. We'll talk about it in tonight's Lockdown Wild postcast. Let's get it fired up.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild fall 5-4 in a shootout here tonight. That's a tough one for the Minnesota Wilds, but honestly, this wasn't a game that should even have gone to OT tonight. When you get the type of offensive performance the Minnesota Wild had in this one, great play by honestly both honestly, I didn't have really any problem with anything that any of the lines did in this game tonight. It was a fantastic performance from your top line. Second line did some really good things. I mean, what more do you say about Matt Boldy at this point? The only thing that he has not done was the shootout attempt missing that led to the Wild coming up short here tonight. There's a lot that happened in this one tonight, but I want to start by taking a look at the heat map for this game, courtesy of Natural Stat Trick, because I'm going to make a point here that I think just is the ultimate, like, this is the reason that the game ended the way that it did. I mean, look at that heat map for the Seattle Kraken on the left side of the screen. Look at where their shots are coming from. Now, there is, you got the 2 goals right in close for the Kraken, but so much of their shot volume came from outside. You have the goal from the 2 face-off circles. Those are goals that your goalie should be able to make saves on when they come from that far out. And look at what the Wild did on the right. Look at all the attention they put to that area right in front, and just all that traffic and all of those goals all scoring in those 2 areas. And so for the Wild offense, I thought they did a fantastic job tonight of pushing, of cycling, and being able to really put a lot of pressure on Joey Daccord here tonight. But again, those goals from that far off in the Seattle the Seattle face-off circles, you really should you really should make those saves. And we'll talk about the 2 goals that maybe shouldn't even have happened for the Seattle Kraken because of of penalties. It was a chaotic type game, but it feels like one that you have to get a couple of additional saves from your goalie. You got to get a couple more saves from your goalie to get yourself in position to come away with that win, because the offense just continued to push. The offense kept battling back and kept putting the Wild in position to be able to come away with the win here tonight, and every time Seattle answered. So before we get into some of the officiating, because I do actually have a take on the Eberle goal, having had a chance to watch the replay a few times. We'll talk about all that. I do want to talk about the standout performances here tonight. Matt Boldy again, a goal, an assist. He had 6 shots on net. He had a block and a hit in 23:38 of ice time. Eriksson Ek left this game. We'll talk more about him coming up in a little bit. Big tip of the cap to Ryan Hartman. With Eriksson Ek out of the game, Hartman stepped up and got some time with Eriksson Ek, or with Boldy and Johansson, and he ended up scoring what should have been the game-winning goal. Had 6 shots on net. He had a couple of hits, 16-13 of ice time for him. I'm going to give a tip of the cap to Marcus Johansson, too, because he was playing with speed. He also played physical here tonight. He had 4 hits, and he was really mixing it up along the boards in those puck battles. So I'm going to give Marcus Johansson a second consecutive pat on the back for his performance. So he gets some props from me in that one. Kirill Kaprizov stole the show. A goal, 2 assists. He had 4 shots on net and a hit as well. He played 24 minutes, 16 seconds. I thought Marat Huznadinov looked really good tonight. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Marco Rossi, 2 assists, 3 shots on net. He had 2 hits, 16:44 of ice time. Matt Zuccarello, a goal and assist, 5 shots on net, 2 hits, 19 minutes, 50 seconds on ice. Defensively, this is the tough one because, how do you rate defensive performance if you do a really good job until late in the game? I thought the defense did a really good job of keeping things out from in front of the net for most of the night tonight. Again, those are saves that I think your goalie just has to make. So defense gets hung with a lot of the goals against, but I feel pretty comfortable. Laying more of the blame there on the goaltending, and the numbers are going to back me up as well. Fleury tonight had a expected goals against of 2.65. He ended up giving up 4 goals. So he was minus 1.34 goals saved above expected. Joey Decord wasn't much better on the other end. He had a 2.68, gave up 4. So he had a negative 1.32 goals saved above expected. But the trio that you would expect in terms of expected goals, Matt Zuccarello had almost a 90% expected goals tonight. Kirill Kaprizov had an 88. Marco Rossi had a 71. Marat Huznadinov had a 73. And, I thought that top line was tremendous tonight. They just continued to push. It's exactly the kind of thing that you need to see from your top line, is continuing to push the envelope, continuing to just keep pressure going on. In those first 2 periods tonight, and most of the game actually, that first line was Seattle had no answer for them. No answer for what Kirill Kaprizov and company were doing when they were out there on the ice. And that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you need from that top line. So they accomplished their goal. Again, I thought the offense did a really good job tonight. I can't hang any of this on them. They continued to push. End of the day, you gotta get the saves from your goalie. Let's talk about the officiating, because I don't usually do this. Hoptics is right on here. I really just like to completely remove officiating from the equation, because in my opinion, there are so many other things that can influence the game as opposed to just strictly going to the officiating. But in tonight's game, a couple of calls I really just didn't see. I didn't see what the I didn't see where they were going. Jonas Brodin on the far side, right in front of the Seattle bench, falls down, got tangled up with Brandon Tanev. He falls down, and so he's the one that gets called for the penalty. Their legs kind of got locked together, and if anything, it looked like Tanev skated into Brodin. And so what are you supposed to do as a defenseman if a player is skating directly into you for the puck and ends up falling on their own. So I didn't agree with that one. I can see why the Bogosian penalty was called, because on that play, on the Chandler Stevenson push to the net, the fact that Stevenson kind of got turned around, that is why that one was called. And so it seemed pretty ticky-tack to me, but I think the fact that Stevenson actually kind of got turned to the side is why they went with the hold there. Hot take in the Eberle goal. I think the kicking motion that we saw happened after the goal went in. I think Eberle kicked it as a reaction. I don't think the kick influenced the goal going in, which is why you saw the Wild, I think, look at it but not challenge that play. Because again, I think the kick happened after the goal went in. And somebody who maybe has a little bit more idea, somebody who has a little bit more idea as to how this works, please throw it out there in the comments. On that play, whose responsibility is Eberle on that play? Just standing by himself behind Fleury, waiting for the tap in. I feel like somebody defensively has to help out, but you also have to know that person is there. So if anybody has a take on that, please put it in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious on that, as to, you've got a skater from the other team who is like literally just right to the right side of the net, just hanging out by themselves. And so it feels like a loss of contain, I think is the phrase that the NFL would use. Thank you, Trav. That's what I thought. And I wanted to, Fleury certainly is deserving of plenty of the L here tonight. But I feel like in that instance, you've got to get some help from a defenseman to get Eberle away from the net, in order to make sure that doesn't happen. So okay, we're getting some thoughts here. I'm gonna go right to him here. So B says it's a time design play. He skates to the post in order to kick it in. Ryan Carter was all over that. Dan also, you're right regarding the Eberle goal. The broadcast showed the kick came after. Really poor D zone coverage too. Didn't see who lost their guy, but inexcusable. And that's going to be one that is hit for the that's going to be hit in the film session for this one tonight. So hey, I'm not going to wear a collared shirt every game, but I do appreciate that being watched all season. Okay, John, Spurgey and Middleton were in the same spot, so it's one of them. Okay, I like that. See, this is an instance where I just am legitimately curious as to how that happens. AJ, surely it's the intent with the kick, regardless of the timing. I see your point there, but I think the key phrase there is influence. If his foot would have influenced that puck, it's an easy overturn goal. But there was no instance in which it seemed like that made any contact or anything, and so at that point, that's why they didn't go with the challenge there. I'll just throw in my my standard shootouts are dumb, but I feel like that was a game that just did not even remotely need to get to OT. I like Dougie's take here. Positives. First line starting to gel. Second line still going with Boldy leading the way. And I like Matt Boldy again tonight. You see it all offensively, but he does so much more with just keeping the puck alive and keeping it in the zone to be able to keep possession alive. And that little move that he had on the power play to score that goal, where he just glided between the face-off circles, waited until he got a nice screen from Eriksson Ek, and he just lasers the puck with authority. And through 2 games, this is as good as he has looked through 2 games than he did at any point last year. I'm going to just throw that out there right now. And so it looks as though Matt Boldy has climbed a couple of stairs in the offseason. Now, let's get to Eriksson Ek, because that's another big part of the equation here. Just scanning Twitter for any potential updates, but Eriksson Ek took an elbow in this one, took an elbow up high, no call, surprise, surprise, and ended up leaving, going down the tunnel. He came back with a full bubble shield and then was in for 1 shift and left again. From Michael Russo, no update yet on Eriksson Ek. Hines doesn't know yet if he'll be on the plane in an hour. They're also going to check on some other guys. If the Wild need a recall, they'll have no choice but to send Jesper down, Russo presumes. So, number 1, if Eriksson Ek misses the game, Liam Ogren is in. End of story. Marcus Johansson also got dinged up in this game. He took a hit on the leg. He left. Looked like he was in some considerable discomfort, but he actually came into the game later. And so I would imagine that his status is he's probably good for tomorrow. Eriksson Ek is the big one. And it's interesting because John Hines down the stretch tried some different center combinations. Now he went to Ryan Hartman with Boldy and Johansson down the stretch, and Hartman ended up scoring the goal to make it 4-3. But Murat Huznadinov also got a couple of looks with Kirill and Matt Boldy. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what the line combinations look like. But the main thing for me is if Eriksson Ek is out, you got to have guys step up. And I don't worry as much offensively with what we've seen through these first couple of games of the season, because it seems like offensively guys are dialed in and are really pushing and doing some good things. Like we worried about the Foligno, Hartman, Trennan line in that game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They looked great tonight against the Seattle Kraken. Now it is Seattle, but they looked great against the Kraken while they were together tonight. They had some great chances. 4th line again. 2nd line continues their strong play, and the top line was sensational in this game tonight. So I don't worry about the offense as much, but on nights like tonight, you can have an offense that you would be happy with 82 games out of 82, and it's still not enough to win, because at the bottom line, at the end of the day, the goalie has to make saves. You can play as great as the Wild did tonight and still come up on the wrong end. And again, I'm going to have to go back and watch some of it more closely, because I don't know how much you hang on the defense, because again, that heat map is pretty clear in front of the net. And so, in that case, you kind of go, okay, let's check here, let's check here, let's check here. It comes down to one spot for me. So it's now 2 games out of 82, and so again, there are some things that need to be tightened up. But I thought the battle and the push from the Wild all night tonight was much better. And so it's just, you just got to keep that going. But I feel way more confident with Gus in the net right now than I do with Fleury. So we'll talk about all that. Some great comments in here as pretty much the entire regular crew is in attendance, and so that's enough of me throwing my thoughts out there. We're going to go through the comment section and see what everybody has to say about tonight's game. So if you have a strong opinion as to what we saw tonight, throw it in the comment section. I'll get to every single one of you before we sign off here tonight, and we'll try this again for the, I think, fourth straight time to see if we can get some of the post-game thoughts in here before we go as well. But if not, then I'll have them for you first thing in the morning as well. Minnesota Wild fall tonight by a score of 5-4 in a shootout. Ban the shootout for the rest of eternity. More recap of this game as we continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Indeed. We are driven by the search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Plus, listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast also brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, you'll get over $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet, and it doesn't even need to be a winner. If you had the Minnesota Wild in this one tonight, tough luck loss, but you'd still get $200 in bonus bets regardless of who you picked. So head to FanDuel.com right now to take advantage of this great offer. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Minnesota Wild on the wrong ends tonight of a 5-4 shootout to the Seattle Kraken. Let's dive into the comments. Anthony Edwards, one GOAT. Well, tomorrow's going to be a really tough game. Winnipeg Jets are a tough team. And these matchups between the Winnipeg Jets, especially over the last couple of seasons, have been intensely physical. And so going into it potentially without one of your most physical players, me no likey. So we'll have to wait and see on Eriksson Ek. We will have a pregame preview for you coming up tomorrow as well. Had a chance to catch up with Connor Rabchek of Winnipeg Sports Talk. So we'll have that for you coming up right around noon tomorrow. And any updates that I hear on the lineup, we'll throw those in for you as well. Shark Boy Ben, I concur. Ugh. Dan, I can't wait till the NHL gets rid of the shootout. Worst gimmick in sports, and 3-on-3 overtime is better anyway. Hope the Wild bounce back tomorrow. I would be very in favor of just more 3-on-3 OT because, and we saw it tonight too, it seems like teams too often just kind of use that opportunity to get their legs back. And there were multiple instances by both teams in which they just kind of were just trying to regain some stamina and not a ton in the way of actual attempts. I will say the Wild in OT had some pretty good looks. Kirill had an opportunity on a shot that just went wide. Matt Boldy had an opportunity where he went straight to the net. I think the puck just kind of bounced off his stick. Marco Rossi had one in close, and if I recall correctly, the puck just kind of got poked away from him. So the Wild did a good job of, pushing to the net, but beyond that, there was a lot of skating. Quadrum. Annoying finish. I'm glad we are having a better start than the last few seasons. This is a tough one to lose. Definitely played hard. I think this is the appropriate response to this game. It was a tough loss, but it wasn't for a lack of battle and push and effort on the Wild side. Like I thought all four of those line combinations were doing some really good things offensively tonight. And again, just comes down to the back end. You gotta get some of those. You gotta make a few of those saves, and then you put yourself in position to not even have to rely on OT or a shootout. Just that feels like when you just have to finish in regulation. Amanda joining us tonight. I don't know if my blood pressure is going to make it through the season. Oh, you just wait. We are just getting started. Trav, let's take a look at the Beniers counter tonight. Matty Beniers tonight. He had 3 shots on goal, 1 block, 1 hit, 18 minutes, 12 seconds on ice, and he was 5 of 13 in the faceoff circle. Yanni Gourde, for comparison, by the way, 13 of 17 in the circle tonight. So that's a pretty good night in the dot for Yanni Gourde. He's always been one of my favorites back in his days in Tampa. Hoptics with us tonight. I know it's early to complain about this, but game management absolutely bleeped the Wild in this game. Most of their goals and most of the penalties, absolute BS. I hear that, but as my stance just generally tends to be is you gotta find a way to come up with, like, let's talk about the one where Fleury ended up on his back in the crease and the scrum pushed him into the net. You got to find that puck, like whether it be him or whether it be one of the Wild players. You got to find that puck. You got to get that puck out of there, because that's one where, as that play was allowed to continue, you are just asking for trouble in that instance. And so, that was one. The couple of high side that got up above Fleury's shoulder, like that seems to be, and I believe that was an issue last year too. That seems to be another theme that is coming through. That high side is just, that's a tough spot to make saves, but you've got to find a way to make them. Urban, this is why they're carrying 3. See, this is, I didn't put a ton of thought into it in the offseason because there was so much time spent saying, why is this a thing? I think this is the ultimate end game for this situation. Is at some point, if your non-Gus goalies are not getting it done, if you're in a playoff chase, you got to find somebody that can come in and can stabilize that, because Philip Gustafsson can't start every game. And so if this bump turns into a pothole, then we're going to see Jesper time here before too long. Because Dan's right. Call me crazy, but after watching how Gus played game 1, I think he would have gotten the win tonight. I agree, because I think the Wild were pushing enough, especially in that second period. They were pushing enough and just continuing to go full throttle offensively. And you give up those goals, and it's just absolutely deflating. Like, it just, you're thinking in the back of your head, like, geez, what do we have to do? Do we have to score 10 tonight? Do we have to score 10 goals to get a win? And so, every time the Wild got back above water, the Kraken got one to pull themselves back in. And if Philip Gustafsson can make saves down the stretch, even when it's 4-3, if he can make those saves down the stretch, you don't go to OT and you end up winning the game and you get all 4 points. So at some point, at some point there's going to have to be a change made. So I think what it was, Jason, I think with the fact that he came out with the bubble shield, I think a lot of people were looking at potentially a nose for Eriksson Ek, but he definitely took a pretty substantial elbow, and it just didn't warrant a call. And Marcus Foligno was incensed. Listen to this tweet from Michael Russo. Foligno on the missed elbow on Ek and the bad call on Brodin. He said, terrible. It's just tough because it's common sense, right? Brodin's got the puck, making a move, and the guy goes to hit him. Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, I don't really understand that call at all. It's tough. And he's not wrong. So we'll keep you up to date on Eriksson Ek. No update as of yet, but we'll know tomorrow morning if he traveled with the team or if not. And so we'll have that for you in our pregame preview, taking a look at the Jets game coming up for you tomorrow. Let's see here. Just continuing to get through the boy. Some of y'all are having a night here in the comments. Quadrum. To be honest, I was expecting Flower to be better in the shootout. He's usually a lot better, isn't he? Yeah. Those shootout goals were pretty easy for Seattle. So that was not great. And we'll see what it means for the Wild, because this is a team that you're expecting to be fighting with for a wild card spot. And so now you just handed the Kraken a point in this one, in a game that again should never have gotten to OT. Denny here with us. Hope you feel better, Denny, soon. But yeah, pretty exactly spot on with what we saw here tonight. Boldy was good. Eriksson Ek was good when he was in. Hartman was good. Johansson was good. We're 2 games in and have 3 points. Yeah, we're not going to drive this bus off the highway just yet. But there will be some things to key in on here, especially over the first 10 or so games of the season. Melissa brings up an interesting one, not liking the new penalty kill in the first 2 games. And I think that again is on the back end. I think especially on a few of those goals, it's the guy in the net. You got to make the saves. Will, and I think this was answered in the comments, but Rossi tonight in the circle was 7 of 15, so just under 50%. And I thought he played really well. He fit right in. That bump we were looking for from Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and Rossi tonight, we got, and then some. That line was, they were great all night. This is an interesting one from Dougie. Murat needs to go to the Rossi school of bulking up. I'm sure he will. I like the fight that Kuznetsov brings on a nightly basis, and he showed a good deal of that here again tonight. But yeah, that seems like that's kind of the next step. Is that was what didn't work with Rossi in his first season at the NHL. Just wasn't strong enough, wasn't tough enough. He bulked up and has never looked back. And so that feels like the next logical progression for Murat Kuznetsov is just to beef up a little bit. And then I think he'll be in a similar situation, because he played with Boldy and Kirill for a bit tonight, and he looked fine. So that'll just be something that he adds gradually. But I think I've been pretty impressed with what we have gotten from him through the first few games of the season. It's just a matter of continuing to add to that. Just continuing to look through the comments here. Metal is still wondering why Merrill and not Chisholm. Well, Chisholm was ill. Was ill on Thursday. Was sick for the Blue Jackets game. Then was, I think, sick the next day. So the Wild's not going to, weren't going to play him after missing for a few days. What I saw on Twitter, I think the plan is to get him into the game tomorrow. So I would imagine we'll see Declan Chisholm make his debut tomorrow, but we'll get lineup confirmation in the morning. I would imagine we'll get full lineup confirmation. Central Division is going to be the Thunderdome this year and probably for a few more years after this. Only the Blackhawks seem to be the only guarantee this year, and Chicago has kept things close. They've kept things close with their first few games. They battled Winnipeg to OT. They had the lead in that game, and just could not hang on for it. And they had the lead on Edmonton. I didn't see what that score ended up. Or oh boy, Chicago has, as of right now, a 3-1 lead over Edmonton. So take that for what you will, but I would say 1 through 7, I would say the whole division is improved this year. Utah looks fantastic through the first few games of the season, and the usual suspects continuing to do their thing. So it's going to be a tough Central Division this year, which is why I feel like they're going to get 5 playoff teams. So there's going to be a lot of Pacific Division teams angling for spots. There's going to be the rest of the Central beyond the top 3 angling for those spots as well. Tom, disgusting to me that Liam Ogren hasn't played. Absolutely embarrassing. Well, you are going to, I think, get your wish tomorrow. Because if Joel Eriksson Ek doesn't play, Ogren with the team is going to slot into the lineup. But I think it's important to mention, too, it seems like guys have been playing harder so far this year. And the guys that you would expect to be, roster bubble guys, Marcus Johansson's a good example. He's put some really strong stuff on film the first 2 games of the season. Until that starts to slip, he is going to be in the lineup. And so until his game starts to slip off, his spot, and especially if that second line continues to look like they have, John Hines isn't going to make too many changes there. But now injuries are where Ogren gets into the lineup. And so I would expect we'll see him tomorrow. Where he slots in is going to be interesting because, it depends on kind of what you're looking for. The fact that Ek is one of the injured parties, you're going to need a center on that line. So does that mean Ryan Hartman slots in there? Certainly seems like it, which means then that's, you've got some bottom 6 juggling to do. Or do you... It's tough because Boldy and Johansson really aren't centers. And so you need to bump somebody up there. And then Foligno and Trennan aren't necessarily centers either. So it feels like a lot of center juggling. And, it's going to be really interesting to see what those line combinations look like. But I'm going to wait. I think I'm going to wait until tomorrow to really react to them until we see what the practice lines look like. The pregame preview is going to come out probably around noon. I'm gonna wait until we get definitive looks in practice before, so that I can react to and kind of look for what we should see from those combinations. So a lot of good. that we saw here tonight. But, again, I think it comes down to one spot. Dan did some heavy lifting for us. Kirill, Hartman, Zuccarello, Boldy, Rossi, Johansson, Foligno, Gaudreau, Trenin, Ogren, Huznadinov, Lauko. That is certainly one way to do it. If it's me, I'm probably keeping Rossi with Kaprizov and Zuccarello because that line looked really good. Like, that was the best line on the ice all night. And if you're going to go toe-to-toe with Winnipeg, you're going to need to have that in your pocket. Now, let's point this out for the Winnipeg game tomorrow. No Brendan Dillon, no Logan Stanley. So that's a good little silver lining heading into tomorrow's game, but it's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough going against that Jets team coming into tomorrow. Jason, terrible schedule, but I like the start, and we got 3 points. 3 out of 4 heading to the road is nice. Thanks to Trav for this. Almost 70 people in here, only 13 likes. How about everybody that is watching? Go make sure that you hit that like button right now so that we can get that number up to where it should be. More comments on Fleury. Dougie's got some combos. I think Kirill, Rossi, Zucchi, Mojo, Hartman, Boldy. Freddie moves to center and fold in Ogren somewhere in the third or fourth line. I like that. I feel like okay. Here's what I'm going to say. I like the idea because if you put Murat Huznadinov with Freddie or with Foligno and Trenin, that's kind of enticing Winnipeg to try to do something to him with those guys out on the ice. And if you have Freddie out there with those two, that makes it less likely that somebody tries to go headhunting, so to speak. What options do we have to replace Flower with Wally from a cap perspective? I mean, the Fleury cap number is already on the books, and so that's I'll look into that one, AJ, coming up here as we get closer to the next week. Alaskan Wampa's here. I want to see how this road trip starts out before I start to conclude anything major. Maybe 5th game in for the league. I like that because, again, like I think you got a lot of really good stuff on film, especially offensively, that I like. And so, will that continue? Or are we going to see, as we've seen over the last couple of seasons, where things dry up a little bit offensively? Time will tell. Wild are doing what I thought they would in the first 2. Not great, not horrible. Perfect encapsulation of being the the mushy middle. Okay, everybody's wondering about the alarm. It's the Zamboni backing up off the ice. That's what you hear in the background. So that's what that was. Just looking to see if there's anything else, as I think I'm pretty much fully caught up with all of the comments. Overtime 3-on-3 for 10 minutes will solve 90% of the games. Let's do it. Let's get that put in so that we don't have to do the shootout anymore. It's not great. So, yeah, a lot of blood usually leads to broken nose. Why would you not just play Gus after the first game? Every other team in the league besides us is starting Gus after that game. Yes, but also back to back. And you want Gus against Winnipeg. Ultimately, will this be a game that haunts the Wild as they get further into their schedule? I'm not going to go that far yet, but again, I can't really point to anything other than just that it doesn't feel like a game that should ever have gone to OT. And so just you have to find a way to come away with points. And Shark Boy Ben brings up a good point here. You know, you want to get everybody worked in. Like we're gonna get to see Jesper here at some point soon, unless there is an injury in which the Wild need to bring another forward on the trip. We're gonna see him early on here, because you want to get a look at all those guys right off the bat. Like Gus obviously put some good stuff on film tonight. Happened is about the best that I can say about it. And so looked like his face was cut in half from the shield. Yuck. That's not great. But Wild should go squirt hockey and give each goalie one period every single game. It's not a bad idea. Quadrum, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt for that comment that I did not show on the board, but that you got called out for pretty spectacularly in the chat. I don't think that's going to factor into the decisions that go for or against the Kraken whatsoever. It's a coach on the bench that has really nothing to do with what's going on the ice. So that's all I'll say for that one. BLT Hoptics. I'm glad you asked this question, but it's BLT hands down. Like that's not even a debate for me. I'm a BLT connoisseur, and I'll eat a good BLT over just about anything exists. Doesn't mean I don't like Rubens, but BLT is the that's the winner, hands down. Dallas is the best team in the division, and anyone who says otherwise is lying. Okay, I'm glad we brought up the Central because I want to talk about it a little bit. Because this is a great point. So let's talk about the top three. Let's talk about the three trendiest teams in the Central: Dallas, Colorado, and Nashville. You could say that Colorado or Nashville maybe have a better top six than Dallas. I would entertain that. But Dallas has infinitely more depth than either of those two teams do. And so depth for me wins. And so I'm always going to rank depth ahead of top end. And so it's Dallas right up there on top. Colorado and Nashville. And honestly, I'll put Winnipeg back in that second tier because they've looked really good through the first few games. And then after that, it's Utah, St. Louis, the Wild. Oh, thank you. Those teams are all going to be angling with the rest of the Pacific for spots in the wild card. So it'll be a fight. It'll be a fight all season. Just going to continue to be a battle. Jesse, do you have any thoughts before you leave?
Can I just do a facial?
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't love it. We don't hate it.
I mean,
goalies is not ideal in a situation
but
like this.
This is the perfect example tonight where it's like the offense did enough that you should win.
You shouldn't have gotten to overtime.
Yeah, that game should not even go to OT.
No.
So,
game 2.
Yeah,
should have beaten Seattle.
I agree. I like that. See you, Jesse. Jesse Pierce. We're gonna make that a bit where she just joins. I think every post game, depending on how big the stories are to be written. But she's absolutely right. That's a game that just should never have gotten to a shootout or even OT. So Denny's got a lot of thoughts. Monday night, we're going live because we got the game tomorrow. I'll be driving all over the place. So we'll have you covered with our next live show Monday night at 8 bells. So stop in and we'll have a really good time with it. Like Denny said on Sunday, we'll look at the first 20 games. Should be able to tell what direction this team is going. That is about the sample size that you need to really form an opinion as to what this team is or isn't, because 2 games in, offense has looked great, but there's a lot that can change between now and then. Kraken fans on Reddit were pretty solid tonight. Their fan base is way easier to get along with than Winnipeg, Chicago, St. Louis. I like Kraken fans in the interactions that I've had with them. It's a very educated fan base that I think really appreciates the fact that they have an NHL team. That the crossover that I did with Erica to preview this game, and doing some production work for Locked on Kraken, had an opportunity. I have had for the last few months an opportunity to, see that fan base react to stuff that's going on. And it feels like a city that is really happy to have an NHL team and is not, doesn't fall into some of that standard fan level stuff on Twitter, especially. So that's a good take by Dan. That's a dub. Let's take a look. Oh boy, Dan, BLT or Cubano, boy, we're getting closer, but still, it's still BLT for me. But a Cubano is an underrated sandwich. Very underrated sandwich. So Logan Stankoven Calder season incoming. Stay tuned. That kid is good. Denny's right on here. Utah is going to have something to say about this playoff thing. And is it too early to say? But could Utah be the one that climbs over the rest of the pack and jumps into the top 3 in the division? Because I saw somebody nationally predict that the Avalanche are not going to make the playoffs this season, which feels like a scorcher of a take. But I don't know. Is it too much of a scorcher? I guess we'll see. Yeah, I'm very much a sandwich enthusiast. Panini press, pretty much anything. Just turkey club, turkey avocado club. Think about that. That's a sandwich. Maybe we should do some more of this. Is just in somebody just throw in a random question, to kind of, to test my ability to weave in between everything else that was going on. And Dan again pointing out the broadcast team. John Forsland is top of the top from a broadcast perspective. Very, very, very good. Jersey Mike's elite. Jersey Mike's is fantastic. John, this is a good point. Avs. Oh, they just lost to the Blue Jackets. Ick. And Nashville got blanked by Detroit. Yeah. Oh boy, they lost 6-4. But I found that interesting when we talked to the Locked On Avalanche boys. They feel like Alexander Georgiev is basically out the door already, which when I heard that was a controversial statement. But through the first couple of games of the season, not looking good. And the Avs just claimed Capo Kakinen. Oh, okay. I might have to walk back my Avs take. We'll see. We'll see. Monte Cristo is great. Elite sandwich. Bruins fan here. Really wish Faber would rip more shots walking the line up top. So frustrating watch him make that pass. This is a great point because this is something that Matt Boldy talked about when I interviewed him. If you missed or haven't heard, Matt Boldy made an appearance on Locked On Wild this past week, to kind of kick off the season. And he talked about, getting to the point that you know where you stand in the pecking order and getting enough confidence in your game to where you are like, no, this is my shot. Like, this is my opportunity to step up and to make the play. And look at what Boldy's done through the first 2 games of the season. It's something that Brock Faber will learn and will, he'll get to the point where he sees those opportunities and he just steps up and takes them. Because the thing we got to remember about these guys is that you're talking about 21, 22-year-olds. And I don't know about all of you, but at that point in my life, I was pretty uncertain about a lot of different things. And I could only imagine being out there on the ice with Kirill Kaprizov, with Matt Boldy, with Matt Zuccarello. I can imagine being out there on the ice. You feel like, well, if I get it to them, they're going to make the play and they're going to score the goal. So that's just part of the learning process, is getting to the point where you are confident enough in your abilities to be able to say, hey, wide open net here. I'm going to let it rip. Like that power play goal for Matt Boldy, where he just, again, glided between the face-off circles. I don't know if he makes that play even last year, because, again, just it's part of the process. It's part of learning the game as a young player, is that eventually it just kind of clicks. And then you just start taking those opportunities yourself. And, you score in a couple of those opportunities and you're like, turns out I can actually do this. So, it was a struggle for the Bruins D-Corps too to incorporate a shoot-first mentality, but it's so refreshing watching it at work. Daniel, glad you hopped in to the postcast here, because this is a great discussion point. And I love being able to have these during these live shows, these discussion points. And that is a great one to bring up, because, let's push a year or two down the line, and you're going to likely have Brock Faber and Zeev Buium on the same pairing. We could get that even as early as this season. Although if Zeev, when he comes up at the end of the season, I feel like he's probably going to get paired with a somebody veteran, one of the veteran guys, just to be able to kind of, help him along a little bit. But you have 2 guys in Buium and Faber who can be very active parts in this offense when they get rolling. And so, this is going to be something that I think becomes more of a focal point for the Wild once they get more of the right pieces in place to be able to do that. Because, Middleton can shoot, Bogosian can shoot. They've shown the they've shown the propensity to shoot, but I think I would rather see the shots coming from the Fabers, the Buyums, the Boldys, I would rather see the shots coming from those guys than some of the others. Trade Kevin Fallness. That's a good laugh. Thank you, the TJ O'Connor, for that. Oh geez, Will, I can't decide this. Olive Garden breadsticks or Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits? I have no idea. That I literally cannot decide. I can't decide on that. Keeping pressure while the other team has possession is another thing I've seen definitely needs addressed, but not much more than that. Just some fine tuning. Yeah, it's some tweaking. It's some fine tuning. It's part of the maturation process. And Aiden, I've already seen Boldy being physical. He seems more confident with his strength. Yet he wants those opportunities. At this point, I can confidently say that the Lockdown Wild effect is a tangible thing. Like it's a tangible thing that we can track now through 2 games. I'm gonna end with this one. Zeev had 0 assists and 4. I'm assuming that's supposed to be 0 goals, 4 assists. Was a -1 last weekend against Alaska. Charlie Stramel had 2 goals, at least through what I saw, in his game tonight as well. So we'll try to keep a little bit of an eye on the prospects too, as the process unfolds. Denny, give me about 15 minutes once I hit end here to just finish up and get out of the arena. But you know where to reach me. Yeah. Beyond that, I think we. All right, that's what I thought, Trav. No worry. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't misspeak. 3 goals in 4 games. So Stramel started to pick it up a little bit since a couple of cold ones to start. So we really like to see that. All right. I think Jesse and I succinctly summed it up. It's a game that you should win in regulation. Offense did plenty. We'll see what the Wild do to adjust tomorrow against the Winnipeg Jets. We'll have a pregame for you coming up probably about noon. We'll have the 3 thoughts for you before that. So double episode before we even get the game tomorrow, and then a postcast after that. Leads to a busy day, but we got you covered, and Lockdown Wild does like nobody else does. So appreciate everybody for tuning in, our regular cast of postcast listeners. Appreciate everybody taking the time to watch and taking the time to be part of the show as well. If you have any thoughts on what you saw in today's game, we love to get those put in so we can give you a shout out here on the show. It's the most interactive post game you'll find amongst the Lockdown Wild, or amongst Minnesota Wild podcast landscape. We got you covered. So thanks everybody. Minnesota Wild fall 5-4 in a shootout, and we will have you covered with a full day of hockey coming up tomorrow as well, right here on Locked on Wilds.